I'm Fred Child with NPR's Performance Today, and this hour I'm in our performance studio, NPR Studio 4A, with pianist Marc Andre Hamelin, who has an hour's worth of terrific music for us, most of which I'm guessing will be new to your ears. Journalists and writers and music publicists and promoters are great pigeonholers of musicians. We have a tendency to label artists, and those labels can stick sometimes for years and years, whether the artist likes it or not. For much of his career, Marc has been labeled a virtuoso pianist, and frankly, he's sick of it. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. First of all, Marc, welcome to the program. Very nice to have you here.
Thanks for having me here.
And it's music of Franz Liszt that we'll be starting with. Speaking of virtuosos, tell me about Forest Murmurs.
Well, it's one of his so-called concert etudes. He wrote quite a few of them during his lifetime, and this is one of the later ones. I think it dates from the 1860s, if I'm not mistaken. And there's really nothing much to say about it. In fact, I think somebody told me recently that he might have written it and then given it a title, which is, however, I think quite appropriate.
Well, we'll let the piece speak for itself then.
Certainly.
It's Waldesrauchen, or Forest Murmurs, music by Franz Liszt, and performed for us in NPR Studio 4A by our guest, Marc Andre Hamelin. Waldesrauchen. Forest Murmurs, music by Franz Liszt, performed for us in our Studio 4A by our guest on this hour, Marc Andre Hamelin. And Marc, wonderful performance. Thank you very much. It sounded like that forest was murmuring at the beginning and the end, but there were some whirlwinds that blew through the middle of that piece there.
Well, it's a little bit like the third movement of the Schumann C Major Fantasy, in which he says to be played consistently softly, and there are two huge climaxes in the course of the piece.
Well, and if you don't mind my saying so, that was, in many ways, what I would say was a virtuoso performance.
In what sense?
In the sense that it's a piece of extreme technical difficulty that you made sound very easy and fluid. But the term virtuoso is one that has been kind of stuck to your forehead and you're kind of sick of. Isn't being a virtuoso supposed to be a good thing?
Well, I think it's probably a better thing than it is in France, where what they call a virtuose, they always refer to a virtuose as somebody who, like a tightrope walker, and he can't possibly have, a musical ability to his name.
Dismissible as a great technician.
Absolutely. It's been like that for some years, and I think it is still the case today, at least in France. I think here there's probably a slightly better connotation, but it's not a tag that I would like to carry to the end of my days. Because believe it or not, and I mean, don't turn off the set when you hear this, and hear me out, please. I do not go towards so-called virtuoso music for its own sake. I am not interested in flexing my muscles. Not only that, I also do not enjoy playing difficult music. Because a lot of it requires a great expenditure of mental and physical energy, sometimes extreme physical energy, such as Alkan's Concerto for Solo Piano, which lasts something like 50 minutes, and there's really not much respite in those 50 minutes.
So much energy goes into just getting all the notes out that you don't have energy left to be a musician. Is that?
Well, normally, but I mean, I try to do it as much as possible. I mean, I really try to give these pieces a soul. I mean, I play these so-called virtuoso pieces because I believe in them musically. And of course, yes, I will admit that I tend to prefer, in a certain sense, piano music that is dense, complex, busy, rather contrapuntal, orchestral. So naturally, these pieces will tend to be very difficult, or somewhat difficult. So, but I am willing to solve all the problems in order to let the music speak out, because very often these pieces have been given very short shrift, in recitals, and I really want to restore them to what I think is their proper place.
Well, this next piece is another one that's been given some short shrift, and it's even named appropriately, one of the forgotten melodies by Nikolai Medtner. Our guest is Marc Andre Hamelin, and we'll now hear him perform music by Nikolai Medtner, who Rachmaninoff called the greatest composer of our time, a long-forgotten composer. This is his Danza Festiva, a festive dance by Nikolai Medtner, performed by our guest, Marc Andre Hamelin. studio performance by our guest Marc Andre Hamelin. Music by Nikolai Medtner, and the title of the collection of pieces almost turned out to be too prophetic. The Opus 38 collection by Medtner is called Forgotten Melodies, and his music was largely forgotten for many years until Marc Andre Hamelin and several other pianists revived his music. We just heard number 3 from that collection, the Danza Festiva, the Festive Dance by Nikolai Medtner. And Marc, thank you for that terrific performance of music by Medtner. I'm glad those pieces have not been entirely forgotten. Thank you.
No, and God willing, with the multiplicity of recordings existing now, including mine, maybe this music has a chance of surviving after all. It's gotten quite a bad rap.
I hope so. It's worth hearing again, and as you said, not just for the technical brilliance of it, but for the musicality.
Oh, this is a perfectly nifty piece. I've always loved it, and there's many more beautiful Medtner pieces to discover. They're all so finely crafted. And you might not actually believe it from hearing it, but this piece is actually not quite that difficult.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't believe that.
I will elaborate. It of course does not sound easy, and I'm not saying it's easy, but it is as easy as it could be, given the music that it is. Medtner was extremely considerate for the pianist, and all of the figures. Prokofiev said it himself when he learned a couple of Medtner pieces for his own recitals. He said the music is right there under the fingers.
Marc Andre Hamelin is our guest in the studio, NPR Studio 4A, during this portion of Performance Today. I'm Fred Child. We'll come back with much more music, including Percy Grainger and music by Hamelin. We're in NPR Studio 4A, our performance studio for this portion of Performance Today, and we're joined by pianist Marc Andre Hamelin, who just played music by Nikolai Medtner for us. And we've got music of yours that's going to be under your fingers in just a moment. Tell me about this collection of 4. Well, actually, tell me about the first one. This is called a Landler. Any relation to the old Viennese dance called a Landler?
In a way, in that it's a slow and graceful dance in 3/4 time. But other than that, I'm not sure how you can relate it to Schubert or any other composer at the time who wrote dances of that name. These are going to be 4 excerpts of a collection of 7 pieces called Con Intimissimo Sentimento, which is, by the way, is an indication that one often found in Liszt's piano works.
Well, the Con Intimissimo Sentimento, a collection of 7. We've only got time for 4, unfortunately, but the 4 that we will hear are the first Landler.
Of 3.
Of 3, then Album Leaf, then Music Box, and we'll finish with After Pergolesi. Music by the man who we're going to hear playing, Marc Andre Hamelin, on Performance Today. Marc Andre Hamelin is our guest in the performance studio. He's at the piano, and he just played 4 pieces of his own composition. We began with the Landler No. 1, the first of 3 dances by Hamelin called Landler. And then we heard the lustrous, and I would have to say clusterous, album leaf as well, the very playful music box, and we just heard After Pergolesi. Marc Andre Hamelin is our guest on this portion of Performance Today. We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, music by Alkan, 88 keys worth of Alkan, and music by another great composer, pianist, Percy Grainger. Marc Andre Hamelin is my guest in the studio during this hour. Marc, you're not only a pianist but a composer as well. And I remember when I was growing up and struggling through piano lessons, Arthur Rubinstein became a hero of mine after I heard his recordings. And my mom took me to see him play. And he played Chopin, and he played some more Chopin, and he played some Liszt, and he played a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And I remember turning and asking my mom, when's he going to play some of his own music? Not understanding that every pianist wasn't a composer. You sort of hearken back to that old tradition of the pianist-composer.
Yes, he's one of the few, I think, born in that era who never, ever touched composition except in extreme youth. And as a matter of fact, I think that early on he realized that the composition wasn't for him. But most of the pianists of that period, I'd say the first 50 years of the 20th century, if they didn't compose, they at least transcribed, for concert use.
You play your own pieces. Do you hope other pianists will play them?
Yes, as a matter of fact, that's why I put this collection together. I was sick and tired of being the only one who played my own stuff. Because without really wanting to, I mean, most of the pieces that I wrote before, or up to now, have been really ridiculously difficult. I mean, I just wrote what I heard, basically. I didn't want them to be necessarily difficult, but there you are. But this one is, this collection is a very moderate difficulty, and as you heard, I mean, it's a collection of 7 pieces. It can be excerpted from, like I've just done.
Well, let's hope other pianists do pick them up. The collection is called Con Intimissimo Sentimento by our guest, Marc Andre Hamelin, who will play for us some music by another pianist/composer, a fellow named Charles Valentin Alkan. This is a piece called Festin d'Aesop, or The Feast of Aesop, approximately speaking. It's music by Charles Valentin Alkan, performed by our guest on this portion of Performance Today, Marc Andre Hamelin. A performance by our guest Marc Andre Hamelin. The piece is by Charles Valentin Alkan, Festin des Op. And Marc, forgive me, but I'm picking my jaw up off of the floor. I have never heard or seen such a thing. That is astounding.
Wild and woolly, isn't it?
To say the least. Now, forgive me for pushing the point a bit, but I want to go back to what we were talking about some time ago about your objecting, essentially, to being thought of as a virtuoso. After hearing and seeing a performance like that, I think you, in some sense, you have to give your audience room to appreciate the physical task of accomplishing such a piece, of playing such a piece. I mean, I think you'll have to admit that this is not something every pianist will play, and it's a remarkable physical accomplishment, first of all, simply to learn the piece, and then to bring musicianship to it in addition to that makes it all the more astounding. I mean, maybe what you're objecting to in being called a virtuoso is in the New Yorker piece about you, it was said that pianists are no longer supposed to pursue virtuosity for virtuosity's sake, and the implication was that's what you were doing.
Well, yeah, that's unfortunate, because I mean, I would very much like the people to see the music. I mean, this is one of the most original pieces that I've ever seen. I mean, first of all, let's place it in context. It comes at the end of a very, very large cycle of something called 12 etudes in all the minor keys, and it's a cycle that actually lasts over 2 hours, and it contains a whole symphony and a whole concerto, both for piano solo, of course. But this is, as I'm sure you've heard, a set of variations. There's 24 of them in number, and a finale.
Basically, a very simple, almost like a children's song.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's 8 bars. All the variations are the same length, and Alkan rather cruelly states that the whole piece should be played in one single tempo without any variation, except there's a relentendo in the last few bars, and that's it.
Well, the piece
so this explains the rather incredible happenings near the middle of the piece.
The piece is the Festin des Op by Charles Valentin Alkan that we just heard, and it's music by Percy Grainger. Next, the Colonial song. Percy Grainger, another of the great pianist/composers. Our guest in the studio is Marc Andre Hamelin, and here he is once again in performance, this time Percy Grainger's Colonial song. Music by Percy Grainger, the Colonial song, and it's remarkable the way it resolves at the end from a massive chord and then diminishes just note by note by note. Played for us in our studio by Marc Andre Hamelin. Marc, we're flat out of time, but I just want to say it's been a remarkable hour, and you are a remarkable musician, and thank you so much for joining us.
You're so welcome. Thank you.